bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right, welcome, Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Wednesday, March 9th, 68 days into the new year, 296 days left. That's right. We are live from the bunker deep underground in downtown Burbank, California. I'd like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. It's Fade to Black. For KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet, I am your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church. Welcome, everybody. Let's do this. Fired up. You know what I miss? I miss the squeaky chairs. Remember those days? I would sit here for 3 hours and not move. I would do the one little movement would be the loudest. Miss those days. They were good. Tonight, oh man, what a week we've had. And tonight is one of those nights. Seriously. Because we have special guests, Don Schmitt and Tom Carey. They've got a new book out. It's called Children of Roswell, and it's an important book. We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to go in depth. It's always great when Don and Tom are on the show, and I respect them both so much. And you know, I like Don and I and Rita have hung out a lot over the years, and it's he's just somebody that I really, really respect. And it's just great when he's on the show. And I know that he feels the same. And same goes for Tom. And the three of us, four of us, Rita will be there, and some of you Fadernauts too, at the Roswell Festival, which will be coming up at the beginning of July. And so I look forward to all of that. That is a huge festival, and it's going to be really cool. So I do. I look forward to that. And then, of course, Contact in the Desert will be right after that, and Dom will be there too as well. So there you go. And also tonight on the show, we're gonna do this. We were talking about it right before the show tonight. We're gonna give away some passes to the Roswell Festival tonight on the show. So there you go. Get ready. Full 3-day weekend passes. We're gonna do that tonight, and we'll take some phone calls. It's gonna be a great show. So get ready. And, you know, I say this all the time about this is what late night, overnight talk radio is all about. You know, but that's what this show is. And tonight it's going to be all that. I mean, last night with Nick Redfern and the night before with Mark Dice. Tonight, you know, with Don and Tom. That's what this is all about. So just get comfortable, get ready. We'll give away some passes, and we'll do that. Tomorrow night, I want to remind everybody, tomorrow night also is another special night. Jeff Harmon is going to be here, and it's Fader night, so he's going to be manning the phones with us tomorrow night, and he's really great with the stars, but he knows everything about Nancy Reagan and astrology, and Nancy passed away Sunday, and so we're going to talk about that tomorrow night. and her funeral will be this Friday. So the night before her funeral, Jeff Harmon's going to be in here, fired up about that. All right, let's go. Let's get the show cracking. I'm going to say this out loud. I'm just going to do this because I do this right at the front of every show every night when I speak about Life Change Tea. And I'm going to say it right now. Thank you, Ronnie. Ronnie sent me sent us a gift package today. Thank you so much for that. And Ronnie is going to be on with us, I think, Monday. Monday is, I'll say it now. Guess what, folks? Monday is Jim Mars. Yeah, Jim Mars on Monday. And Ronnie's going to join us, too, as well, Monday. So there you go. All right. Life Change Tea. Thank you, Ronnie, for the package today. Very cool, very thoughtful. And for everything that you need, go to getthetea.com. It is cold and flu season. And when you drink that tea every day, you head off all of that bad stuff that could come and just take you down. I feel great. Getthetea.com. And I know you want to feel like I do. You know, getting on the microphone every single night of the week, it can bring you down. And the only way that happens is Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. Go there now. Use promo code Jimmy. You can do it on the phone or order online. Get free shipping. And there you go. Also, supporting the sponsors of the show, always remember, you know, if you support our sponsors, then you support the show and you help yourself. It's a win-win all the way around. It's the same thing with Studio Dome. That is the baddest speaker package that you can get, and you get it for $99. A portable Bluetooth surround sound system. I'll tell you, Rita and I last night, I'll say it, I'll do it right now. We went through some more Lloyd Pye last night, taking notes. Really, really fun conversation last night. And so we got the whole surround sound system going on. We had the subwoofer in the middle of the bed, satellite speakers on each nightstand, and the tablet in the middle, and taking notes with Lloyd Pye last night in wireless Bluetooth stereo. So cool. All right, so just go. Use the promo code Jimmy as well there. Get everything for $99, free shipping, and 60% off. Hard shell cases, the works. Go and do it now, Studio Dome. All right, now, again, the New Living Expo, we're going to have on the show. That's New Living Expo's April 29th through May 1st up in San Mateo. Looking forward to hanging out with all of you Fadernauts in the San Francisco area. It's in San Mateo. It's literally, if you need to know where it is, it's like 2 miles south of the airport of SFO. It's right there. And speaking this year, Stephen Greer, Nassim Haramein, Greg Braden and that hair, Scott Walter, our good friend, is going to be there, Catherine Woodward-Thomas, Dr. Eben Alexander, Karen Newell. It's going to be great. And a lot of speakers. Mike Barra is going to be there. Laura Eisenhower is going to be there. It's a great event. It's a big event. And we look forward to, and the prices are really reasonable for a 3-day pass. Pretty cool. So go check that out. The links are at jimmychurchradio.com. By Monday, by the way, we should have our new website up. Yay. Excited. Yay. Excited. It's going to be cool. So for now, you can still go to the future page. All of our conferences are listed there with the links to each conference. And you can find it out, hotels and pricing and special pricing and everything. Contact in the Desert is right after that, June 3rd through the 6th. And we were going through the schedule today on Saturday at 2 o'clock. Okay, we're broadcasting live Friday. That's from 7 to 10. And then Saturday at 2 p.m. in the main amphitheater, I'll be hosting a really cool alien technology and government secrecy panel. And that panel, let's see here. Hold on. Let me just click. That panel the panel is called They Walk Among Us, U.S. Government Secrecy and New Disclosures. Check this out. John Greenwald, Stanton Friedman, Nick Redfern, David Pallades, Mike Barrett, Danny Sheehan, and Richard Dolan. That's my panel. And then right after that is the George Norrie panel, back to back. So how cool of an afternoon is that? And then we're going to be doing a bunch of other things running around, and George Norrie's special birthday party is happening that afternoon too as well. So it's going to be a great day that Saturday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday I'll be on the panel for David Wilcock, and that'll be Sunday. So we've got a full weekend slated at Contact in the Desert, June 3rd through the 6th. And that's going to be exciting. And then, of course, the Roswell Festival, June 30th through July 3rd. And Don and Tom will tell us more about that when they come on here in a few minutes. And then, now, scheduled right now for the Roswell Festival, Travis Walton, Don Schmitt, Tom Carey, Peter Robbins, Alejandro, Daryl Sims, Stanton Friedman, Larry Holcomb, excited about that, and the one and only Thomas Reed. And again, a bunch more speakers and more information is over at their website. And you can get the links at jimmychurchradio.com. Then UFOs Within Reach, August 19th through the 21st, Big Bear. This is turning out to be really cool, too, as well. Jason Martell, Nick Redfern, Stanton Friedman, Kathleen Martin, Mike Barra, Steve Murillo, Yvonne Smith, Chase Kletzky, and Hugh Newman, and Brian Forrester is coming up from Cusco, Peru. There you go. That is a great summer. Very fired up, and it's coming down faster than we can even think about it. Let's get this show cracking. Today, 30 Seconds to Mars drummer Shannon Leto is 46. Isn't he? That's Jared Leto's brother. Aren't they both in that band? I believe so. He's 46. Our dead guy's birthday today is, moment of silence, Yuri Gagarin. 1934 to 1968, died, murdered, at the age of 34. Of course, he was the Russian cosmonaut who became the world's first man in space, allegedly, in 1961, where he spent a grand total of 1 hour and 48 minutes, a feat that was not repeated by the Americans until 1962 with John Glenn. Now, on the 27th of March in 1968, while on a routine training flight, he was with his flight instructor, Vladimir Sergoyan, and they were assassinated. That's right, in a MiG-15 in a crash near the town of Kerjak. The thing is Yuri was about to talk, and they knew that. There was something fishy about that whole thing with him in that first space flight, if he was even on it at all. And that's the rumor. There's tons of conspiracies behind, lots of different stories, but a lot of crazy evidence. So there you go. I think he was taken out. Sue me, Putin. Twitter, @JChurchRadio. That's what you want to do. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. We don't bite. Come and hang out. Any questions or comments during the show for myself or Don Schmitt or Tom Carey, you know what to do. Hashtag F2BQ. On this day in history, 1997, it happened. Christopher Wallace, a.k.a. Biggie Smalls, a.k.a. Notorious B.I.G., is shot to death at a stoplight outside of the Peterson Automotive Museum, La Cienega, and Wilshire Boulevard, right here in Los Angeles, California. Here's a fader fact for all of you flat earthers, right? Write this one down. Rainbows are actually circular. That's right. We don't typically see a full circle rainbow because the Earth's horizon blocks the lower part. And that is a fader fact, just for you flat earthers. So, on the show last night, I don't know who did it, and you can let me know right now on Twitter. During the show last night, there was a tweet that I saw blast past me in TweetDeck. But I read them all. I try to. And it caught my eye, and it was something about the big three UFO cases. The U.S. has Roswell, the U.K. has Rendlesham, and Australia's got Westall. Somebody tweeted that last night, and please let me know who tweeted it. Okay, somebody just pop up and say that was me. And although I agree with this, it got me thinking. And whoever tweeted it, remember that, and I do. I really want to know who did that. Because whoever is the guilty party, remember that I really do read Twitter and Facebook and Spreaker and the chat room and my email. I do. I read that stuff. And whoever did the tweet is fully responsible for messing up my entire day. Mess me up. Because when I start thinking about something like that tweet, I can't stop. Seriously. So anyway, let me get back on track here. When I get asked about evidence, right? Evidence. I get asked all the time. And it's probably because I talk about that the most. I talk about the evidence. Eyewitnesses are great. I've had my own sightings myself. I'm an eyewitness. But when it comes down to evidence, that's the preponderance of the evidence, hard evidence. When we talk about ufology or anything, it's the hard evidence that is key. The three cases in the Twitterer's tweet all have great evidence, but it was Roswell that stands above them all. And although I've stated this before on the air, we need a little refresher course in advance of our two guests tonight, Don Schmitt and Tom Carey. Two men who know more about Roswell than anybody on the planet. And I will always defer to them when it comes to the facts of the case. Throw in a little Stanton, of course. But with Roswell, we have tons of eyewitness accounts. You got military, civilian, you have professionals, young, old. Hundreds have come forward. And although this is great and it weighs heavy with the facts as we know them, the most important piece of evidence is the military themselves. Let me explain. Secrecy at that point in our history, in 1947, 2 years after the ending of World War II, secrecy at that point in our history was taken very, very seriously. The atomic bomb was the most secret, the most important, the most complex, the most everything. It still is to this day. That we or any nation can possess right now, the most secret thing that you can have is atomic power. And the seriousness of Roswell, New Mexico, at that time, it just cannot be stressed enough. That town was the real deal of secrecy. Think about it. Now, Walter Haut was the public information officer at the 509th Bomb Group based in Roswell, New Mexico, during 1947. We know this. And it was early on July 8th, 1947, when he was ordered by the base commander, Colonel William Blanchard, to draft a press release to the public announcing that the United States Army Air Forces had recovered a crashed flying disc. That is it. Everything stops right there. Done. Fini. Put a fork in it. That's the end of it. Blanchard knew what he was doing. You have to put your mind into Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. This was Roswell, man. Ground zero for our nation's deepest secret. Atomic power. The bomb. And he was the man selected for the job of running the joint. He was no slouch act. Blanchard was the real deal. Think about that. The atmosphere of that base and the town, they were protecting our security, our secret. And right after World War II, after dealing with that for so many years, nationally and worldwide, secrecy was paramount. Everything that was said, done, executed, everything was done in a methodical, comprehensive, precise way. Everything. And that Walter Haut press release was not an exception. That press release was executed. They knew what they were doing. Haut went on to say that he was told by Blanchard what to say, what to write. He was handed the press release. But that's not even the most important point to me. At that time, you did what your government said. Believe it or not. You did what the police said. You did what your teacher said. You did what your parents said. It was a different world. And you believed what you were told. You believed what your teacher said. You believed what your parents said. You believed what the police said and the military and the government. And it was a different world. And there were no exceptions to this. And it worked well because there was trust in everything. Kind of want those days back, actually. Then the retraction. The retraction hit later the same day. But the story had already broken nationwide. Newspapers, radio, and the nation's media, everybody was converging on Roswell. Then the retraction hit. And the media, the reporters, the journalists, everybody turned around and went back home. Because they believed what they were told. Now, right there, Houston, we have a problem. Because the original press release was the truth. We all know that the Army was not going to fly a weather balloon to Wright-Patterson. We know that now. But at the time, the country believed everything that we were told. It was our duty. Listen to me. We bought the weather balloon story, and we moved on. But history is our friend. We can look back and we can study the facts of the case now. The original Haut release had details. Everything was in there. The original story, go to the front of the Roswell record, go there and read it. There were details, man, details. It was all there because they were telling the truth. The retraction had nothing because it was a lie. It was a cover-up. It said weather balloon. That was it. The best piece of evidence of the greatest UFO case in history came from the military. Not from two men fishing in a swamp. It's very important to understand this because the government, the military, the Department of Defense can't have it both ways. Oh, we were telling the truth here. Oh, no, we were telling the truth here. You can't have it both ways. But back then, they had it both ways. Because of the secrecy, because of the memory of World War II, the atomic bomb, and everything that was being dealt with in Roswell at that time, Blanchard had a lot of power. And people believed what they were told. You didn't question it. And now today, we know the best piece of evidence of the greatest UFO case in history came from the Army themselves. Tonight, Don Schmitt and Tom Carey are here. These two gentlemen know more about Roswell than anybody on this planet. That's all that Tom Carey has done since 1991 is research Roswell. Don Schmitt has been there lockstep. It's all they do. We're going to discuss all of that. And if you remember, oh, man, it's going back a couple of years now. One of the conversations I had with Don very early on, before a lot of other things that happened last year. One of the things that I had discussed with Don is that, that's 1947. We're in 2000. Back then, it was 2014, 2013, 14. And that we are in danger of all of the last of anything that is directly connected back to July 8th, July 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 1947 in Roswell. It's going to be gone. And we need to document and lock down everything that we can before it completely goes away. Because then if it does and we don't do it, the government wins. They did their best. They did their absolute best to squash the story. The thing about Roswell, which all of you need to understand, if you take one thing away from this show tonight, is the realization that from 1947 until 1980, nobody mentioned Roswell. You can go back. I study radio. It's what I do. I do this show every night. Let me tell you something. I don't just sit down here and turn on a microphone. I study radio. I go back through history. I listen to broadcast after broadcast from the 40s, 50s, 60s. I listen to them all. All of the big researchers, all of the interviews, all of the contactees, everybody. I've listened to it all. Not one mention of Roswell. They almost pulled it off. Very successful. And you need to think about it in those terms. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Don Schmitt, Tom Carey, right here. Their new book, The Children of Roswell. Tonight's going to be one of the most important broadcasts that you have ever listened to. It's my pleasure. This is Bespoke Radio for the masses. On the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet, I am your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be back right after this short break with Tom Carey and Don Schmitt. Stay right there.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I got to tell you, it was a relief. National tax experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil three-letter. So, seriously. Give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. EXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Klutsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade-or-Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Combat, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. Tonight, Don Schmitt and Tom Carey join us. Their new book is The Children of Roswell. Tomorrow night, Jeff Harmon's going to be here manning the phones, and we're going to be talking about Nancy Reagan and astrology. Of course, her funeral is on Friday. Well, I've been looking forward to this show for a while. I've got the book. I've been reading it, and it's an important book. Don Schmitt is the former co-director of the J. Allen Hynek Center for UFO Studies, where he served as Director of Special Investigations for 10 years and also was a special investigator for the late Dr. J. Allen Hynek. Schmitt graduated from MATC with a degree in commercial art and graduated cum laude from Concordia University with a degree in liberal arts. Schmitt is the author of dozens of articles about UFOs, as well as the co-author of 2 best-selling books, The UFO Crash at Roswell, Witness to Roswell, and, of course, The Truth About the Roswell UFO Crash. He is also the author of Roswell, The Chronological Pictorial. Tom Carey has a BS degree in Business Administration from Temple University, a master's degree in Anthropology from California State University, Sacramento, and he also received a fellowship to pursue a PhD in anthropology at the University of Toronto. Tom became interested in UFOs while in high school and rekindled that interest in 1986 when he became the MUFON State Section Director for Southeastern Pennsylvania. Since 1991, Tom's research has focused solely on Roswell. Tom also became a special investigator for SUFOS in 1992 and served on its board of directors from 1997 through 2001. Tom has appeared as a guest on a number of radio and television shows concerning the Roswell incident, as well as appearing in several filmed documentaries. Their latest book is The Children of Roswell, and it's about the aftermath, the lifetime impact that Roswell had on the families who were forced to live the truth while accepting the government's account of the incident, then forced to face years of suppression and fear of reprisal from a government sworn to protect them. Their website is roswellinvestigator.com, and I would like to welcome back to the program Don Schmitt and Tom Carey. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Jimmy. Nice to be with you.
How you doing, Tom? You know, I know Don's doing great. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing okay. It was 80 degrees here today, and I'm just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a little town called Huntington Valley. We've only had one snow this year, and today was 80 degrees, so I'm happy as a clam.
Yeah, that's a good
the
winter.
rash is finally clearing up, right?
Yeah. And, Don is still shoveling snow in Wisconsin.
No. We don't have a speck on the ground. We've been in about 70 for the last 3 days. So.
Yeah, that's your story, and you can stick to it. I was born in Chicago. That's fine. Hey, I'm gonna let you both know that Don, right now, the odds now are 5-1 that you're wearing a suit and tie, and they're taking bets on Twitter. That
I am wearing slick slacks.
Okay.
I am wearing a dress shirt, but no suit and tie. Nope.
All right, guys. Welcome back.
To wingtips. I think he probably has wingtips on.
Yes.
True story. I remember one time Stan Friedman, and because of the 2-hour, time change even from here, so it's 4 hours from the West Coast. And he was asked, well, what are you wearing, Mr. Friedman? And he actually said, well, to be honest, I'm wearing my pajamas.
I did. You know what? I did an interview with David Jacobs on Coast to Coast over the weekend on Saturday. And after the interview, now, he's back on the East Coast. And so when we're done.
Tom,
yeah. So when we were done, it was probably, it's 1, 2 in the morning. And I get back on the line. I was like, a great show. And he goes, Jimmy, man, I got to tell you, that was fun. Thank you so much. But I did the interview in my pajamas, and I'm now in bed. And I was like, wow, it's so funny.
Even worse.
And it was.
Put him to sleep. Come on.
It was pretty funny. And for him to admit it, though, it was great. David, I apologize. I hope I didn't crush your image. No,
I think Howard Stern might have done that.
Well, the thing is when radio is totally different, and what I really love about radio is you can paint the picture. Orson Welles did it, the best, right, with War of the Worlds.
Master.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and you're painting a picture for everybody, and that's what I really enjoy. Television's great. There's nothing wrong with it. But radio is a whole nother way to communicate, and you are allowed to. One of the we were talking, the three of us, we were talking about Long John Nebel earlier today before the show.
Right.
And one of the things that I love to do when I listen to the Nebel shows, and I try to do one a day. They're 5 hours long, and but sit and just picture them sitting at that table having their conversation, for 5 hours at night in New York in 1962, whatever, and paint the picture that they paint for you, and let your imagination take off, and that's the beauty of
theater
radio.
of the mind.
Yeah,
exactly.
No doubt about it. No doubt.
And that's the great thing about you and Coast to Coast and some of the others, that you are certainly the contemporary Long John Nebels, and as a result, we're no longer live in studio, which is the one thing that I miss. But certainly a throwback to the idea that it's live, unedited, and it can become a free for all.
And which is the point, when you are listening to, there's nothing wrong with NPR. There's not. But when you're listening to programs like that where you can tell it's pre-recorded, well,
it's
you know what?
Right.
And you can listen to that anytime. It's a whatever type of broadcast. But there's another element when it's live and you have the edge of being live. You don't know what's going to come up. You don't know what the question is. It's not going to be perfect, but it's certainly always going to be interesting. And there's a big difference between a recorded podcast and a show like this, which is live. And the
audience is sharing that. The audience is experiencing, that whole, experience firsthand. That they're not listening to it streamed. They're not listening to it after the fact. We're all sharing as far as this moment.
Years ago.
Wait a minute! Wait a minute! This is live.
Well, Tom, we were just going to ask you that, Tom.
Yeah, we were going to ask if you were alive. But years ago, I don't do that. I haven't done this in a long, long, long time. Years ago, I was forced into taping an interview. And I'm not going to say which one it was or who was it, but it was something overseas, and it was a timing thing. And I did it. And it was okay, but I listened to that, and I couldn't stand myself. I couldn't stand myself. I just couldn't. For putting, not putting my foot down and saying, look, we don't have to do the show. I can bring out another guest, but we have to do it live. And I did it once, and I won't do it again. I won't, because you can tell, even I went back, Don, this is the truth. I went back, and it was a live interview. I could have just and I went back, and I edited out a couple of things and a flubbed word here or there and a couple of and I went back and listened to it, and I felt guilty, and my audience will never, ever, ever do that again. I won't do it.
Look at the difference between canned music and when you actually had DJs who had request lines. And you had people, calling in, music that nobody else would even care for. But nonetheless, it was interactive. It was actually audience participation. And that's what you have as far as with your show and the others. The audience is right there.
If you remember back in the day, Tom would, because Tom is old. But back in the day, if you were listening to somebody and you're listening to
I heard the original War of the Worlds.
Yes, you have an autographed Bible, God. Tom. I've already heard. Is this today? And when I went to school for broadcasting, and they started to break my heart. One of the things that started to reveal in the books and studying that now really. You have, because of all the cutbacks and the way that the radio business is now, you've got one guy sitting in his underwear in Santa Clarita, California, broadcasting to 400 stations across the country. And they think, and they do this intentionally, they think he's really in Tulsa. They think he's in Baton Rouge. They really do. And I don't know how they get around with, if somebody said, hey, are you going to be at the new car wash opening, for whatever, pick a station, right, on Saturday? He can't fly out of Santa Clarita, to go. But they actually think that these guys, and it's misleading to the audience. They really don't know. When he's taking phone calls from across the country on an 800 number, right, it's all an illusion. I'm breaking a lot of hearts right now. Right now, people are
that's
going,
why that was that wonderful scene in American Graffiti when Richard Dreyfuss went to the radio station
with
hoping to meet Wolfman Jack.
Yes.
And he tried to create the impression that, the Wolfman, he's everywhere. He's not here. He's, just on every station throughout the country. And then to catch him reverting back to the character as he walked out of the studio. And saw that it was indeed the real man, the real Wolfman Jack.
I miss that guy. I mean, and there's a whole thing that, and I'm glad that you understand what I do here, because when I say Long John Nebel, or do you guys remember Bill Jenkins here in Los Angeles on Saturday nights?
Mm-hmm.
What a show!
I do not.
Tom, you don't. If you ever if you get a chance, he had it was on KABC. It was called. I think it was called Open Minds Radio. Actually,
I remember Long John Nebel, but not this. Did you say Bill Jenkins?
Yeah, Bill Jenkins, yeah. And go check him out. And he had everybody on his show on Saturday nights. But that type of show. I used to sit and listen to those shows when I was a kid, and I would just think, man, if there's a way, to do that, I want to do exactly this one day, and that's exactly what this show is about. That's it. There's no fluff to it or anything like that. The whole thing is
it's not pre-rehearsed.
No, and that's the beauty of those shows. That's what got me sucked in. Mm-hmm. And if I could, if I was sucked in, then this show today would also suck people in, and they can't get out of it. That's.
I mentioned I mentioned Howard Stern a moment ago regarding Dave Jacobs, and I'm fortunately in an area that I'm not far from Chicago, so I was able to do a lot of live studio radio out of Chicago, and specifically the Loop, WLUP. And there you had Steve Dahl and Danny Bonaducci and Jonathan Brandmeier, and I used to do Kevin Matthews, and these were all shock jocks. And I loved being on those shows because I could give it back just as hard.
Yeah.
And Kevin Matthews, he so respected the topic that I could not get him to do shtick.
Really?
Many openings as I would give him, and I was on his show a half a dozen times through the years, and live in studio could not get him to revert to his cast of characters and to slip into these other personalities because he so respected the topic. So my one disappointment, I guess, but nonetheless, the circle of fire it never fazed us because, like I said, we could give it back in turn as well.
Well, concerning the new book, I'm not actually changing gears here. I'm staying on point. My opening conversation tonight, I don't know if you guys listened to it, but it was about what Don and I, Tom, you weren't on. This is a few years ago now. When Don was on the show, and we had a conversation about, I'd asked Don, what's the one piece of evidence, if you're in court, and you've got to slide a piece of evidence, you got one crack at the Roswell case, and you're going to slide something across. What would that piece of evidence be? And Don, I don't know if you remember the answer, but I'll ask you again. What would your piece of evidence be? You got one shot.
Yeah, I hope I'm consistent in that certainly that which is admissible in a court of law, and that being the deathbed testimonies. The fact that, they would be accepted as physical evidence in any court of law regarding any other topic, but yet when it would come specifically to UFOs, or more specifically Roswell, those we should cast out. Those would not be accepted. And then my demand would be, well, then I guess we have to throw out all deathbed testimonies. But nonetheless, the Roswell deathbeds, down to a man, they are all talking about the little people, the little men. They're all discussing, the non-human bodies which were recovered at Roswell. And isn't it about time that we at least start acknowledging the fact that their stories are consistent? They're all talking about the same event. They're all reading from the same script, if you would have it, that way. But nonetheless, these are admissible in a court of law, and as I've even had a judge tell me, that we would win this hands down in any court of law.
Tom, for you, what would your single piece of evidence? You got one crack at it. What do you slide across the defense table?
Wow, I was asked that question yesterday, Jimmy, and I told the questioner that I could not single out a single piece. What I would say is that it's amazing. It's like Roswell to us today is like a jigsaw puzzle where Don and I have put together all the little snippets of testimony. Each little snippet is a piece in the puzzle, and we've been able to arrange that into a picture that you can see. The number of crash sites, what actually crashed, the little bodies, and the aftermath of the threats to civilians with their lives. So for me, Jimmy, it wouldn't be a single piece until we actually get a physical piece of evidence, and then that would be it. That's what we call our holy grail of Roswell, is a piece of the memory metal. And but it would be the whole picture that we have put together that you can look at it and say, yes, I see that there's no other explanation for this than it was an extraterrestrial craft and crew that crashed in 1947.
Well, Don, you will remember what my answer was, and it was I was pleasantly surprised about Chapter 1 in your book. And in Chapter 1, which is it's titled "This is where Mac found something else," right? Chapter 1.
Correct.
And the first paragraph of this chapter, by the way, you guys had to wait to page 47 to get to Chapter 1. Nonetheless, but what you point out here is the press release, right? And that's the opening paragraph of the book. I'm not going to read it, but my thing, and what I had said to you, Don, 3 years ago, was, for me, it's the original press release. That right there, I think it all stops. Right, any discussion further after that stops. In that, it is such a strong thing that the best evidence is the Army themselves. The best evidence is the military.
It was orchestrated. And what's amazing is that the pundits within the UFO community are still arguing as to why would they have done that? Why could, how could the base commander, Colonel Blanchard, have been, just so moronic to put out such a press release when they obviously knew that it had to be nothing more than a weather balloon. But they never consider that Washington already had some of the wreckage in hand by Sunday evening, July 6th. And they had a full day to put this together. The press release didn't come out till noon Central Standard Time on Tuesday, July 8th.
That's right.
So it was not any knee-jerk reaction on their part.
No.
And the base commander, Blanchard, he announces he's going on leave after a 4th of July weekend, which, anybody in the military would tell you that makes about as much sense as going AWOL. And then, secondly, they abduct the very rancher, Mac Brazo, who first reported the find, who reported the crash. So he's not available for comment. So the base commander and the primary witness are unavailable for further comment. And the only person that they even mentioned in the press release is the head of intelligence, Major Jesse Marcel Sr., and he is on his way to Fort Worth, going up the chain of command for a press conference. So he's unavailable at Roswell. So the principal characters are all gone.
And
they're no longer, as far as available for any further comment.
It's so important for us today, the people that research and follow these subjects, to understand exactly what was going on immediately after everybody went out to the ranch to look at the wreckage with Jesse Marcel, because this the secrecy, the atmosphere of the United States, it wasn't like it is today. We don't have a concept of what it was really like back then. The atomic bomb and the secrecy that is involved with that was what the village of Roswell was encompassed in. And the base there, the Army airfield, and that aura, that thing that was there, was something that was respected. That's it. That being, loose lips sink ships, right? And that was the way of life. And we don't have any kind of frame of reference today for us to kind of wrap our mind around what it was like back then. And so I say all of that because for Blanchard to release something, I said it in my opening statement, Blanchard wasn't a slouch act. He wasn't a goofball. He was the base commander of probably the most important military installation on planet Earth at that time. And for him to say or do things, it was methodical, it was comprehensive, it was thought through, and it was deliberate with intention. And you go and you craft that press release. He knew exactly what he was doing and saying, and he knew the importance of everything that he did. And today we don't really understand how important it was back then and the secrecy and everything that was involved in Roswell at that time.
Not to interrupt Tom, but let me add one additional thing, and how the skeptics tried to even parse the words within the press release, and something else they failed to acknowledge. It states that the disc was stored by the rancher, and most importantly, that the Army took possession of it. They had it, when in reality, there was an entire debris field still out there.
That's right.
When in reality, there was an impact site much closer to town where there was the remains of the ship and the bodies and a survivor. So it becomes an even much more important location to the story. So the point is, they're telling the press, nothing more to see here. There's nothing else to see. We have it. Again, in reality, everything was still left to be seen. Everything was still out there. And so that's another reason that the press release was worded so precisely, so perfectly, so ingeniously, because it created the straw man, and then it was all set to be torn down with the weather balloon explanation.
Tom? Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
If I could just add something here. Basically, when that initial press release went out, everybody that knew that the press would be calling the base, no doubt. You know, once it hit the AP wire, it went around the world, and phone calls started coming in. But what had happened, Colonel Blanchard advised his staff there, well, I'm going on vacation, going on leave, see ya. When in reality, he didn't. He went out to the crash site to take command of the recovery. So he's unavailable. The base public information officer, First Lieutenant Walter Hout, he's sent home to hide out in his home in Roswell. So he's unavailable. The governor of New Mexico, Thomas Mabry, he was due into Roswell the next day, or the day after, to sign the Air Force Proclamation, which was a new, not a law, but something to recognize the Air Force and their contribution to World War II and going forward. But he and his wife took an impromptu vacation to, quote unquote, the mountains. So he was gone. So what they did, all calls that came into the base, they had transferred to the sheriff of Chavez County, who was based in Roswell, Sheriff Wilcox. So the calls went to him, and all he said was, well, I can't tell you anything. I'm just helping the boys out over at the base. So it was like a circle, sending these people around in a circle, chasing their tail. They couldn't get further information. And then, of course, the next day, or actually later that afternoon, the weather balloon story came out. So it was really a slick piece of yes, that they put together to put out the story, then get out of Dodge.
And also, and you both bring up a really good point, which I addressed a little bit at the beginning of the show. The original press release had details. It was fully detailed. The story, I mean, it was detailed. And when they came out with the weather balloon fluff, right, the next day, and the retraction hit.
Well, then that very same day.
Yeah, it was later on that day.
Later.
Right. Time had referenced that it hit everything the next day, but the retraction was later on that afternoon. And the retraction was, it's a weather balloon. No details, no extreme anything. Nothing was there. Just that it was a weather balloon, and the story was, squashed at that point. So they went from details, paragraphs, locations, debris is on its way to Wright-Patterson. Everything was there, fully detailed, to weather balloon. And that's a very important detail that when I talk about evidence, that's why that press release is so friggin' important here. You know, they when the military says you need to believe everything that we say back in 1947, and everybody did, they come out with two different stories, and we're expected to make a choice and believe them both. And the weather balloon story, it was our duty to believe. Right? Do you understand what I'm saying? As citizens, it was our duty to believe the weather balloon story.
Well, Jimmy, for that story to be believed, you have to believe that the men.
You know what, guys?
509
Hold on for a second. I cannot believe I just did this. I blew right past a hard network break because I'm all in to this conversation. That's live radio. That's live radio. Our guests tonight, Tom Carey and Don Schmitt. Their new book is The Children of Roswell. I apologize to the network. Oh, man, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm your host, Jimmy Church.
There goes another bonus.
Yeah, that's right. More with Don and Tom right after this. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
Hey folks, Life Change Tea here, reminding you that colds and flus suck. Feeling lousy sucks, and allergies really can be annoying. What if you could change that? What if you could drink something that changed the sick and tired scenario? Well, you can change how you feel with a little help from Life Change Tea. Life Change Tea is a drink you make, you control, and you drink. There are 8 organic herbs that blend together and give you what you need to fight the flus and colds of this world. Less sickness is more relief. Life Change Tea can help with high blood pressure, constipation, high cholesterol, and much, much more just by drinking the tea. Read the numerous testimonies at getthetea.com. If you're tired of feeling lousy, order right now at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Or you can call us at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. If you've heard this commercial more than once and someone's trying to tell you something, it's time to get well. GetTheTea.com.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you. And your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Hello, Fadernauts. Are you looking for the ultimate Bluetooth speaker system? Well, check this out. The Studio Dome surround sound system, featuring the Studio Dome 1 SD1 and the Studio Boombox SBB wireless Bluetooth speakers, is the perfect way to get surround sound without all of the cable headaches. With its own hard shell custom carrying case for taking your surround sound experience on the go. Each hard shell case comes packed with an SBB, 2 SD1s, cables, and power. It's just $99. And you use the promo code Jimmy, and you get yourself some free shipping. Once again, Studio Dome brings you the best deal on the net. Anywhere. Just go to the Studio Dome banner, jimmychurchradio.com, promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter right now at JChurchRadio. Use the hashtag F2B for the sandbox. Come hang out. It's live. It is in real time. Tonight, our guests are Don Schmitt and Tom Carey. We're discussing their new book, Children of Roswell. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow night, Jeff Harmon's going to be here manning the phones all night long, taking your phone calls. And we will be discussing Nancy Reagan and astrology, of course, the night before her funeral, which will be here in Southern California, Simi Valley, at the Reagan Museum on Friday. Also, really quick, Melanie Johnson from Weaverville, North Carolina. You just won a full weekend pass to Contact in the Desert. Melanie Johnson, Weaverville, North Carolina. Congratulations. We will see you at Joshua Tree out there. And I will make sure that you meet Don Schmitt, and you can check out his hair and the sweat that he will be. And with all of that, not one hair will be out of place. And we'll see you in Joshua Tree. We were talking about Long John Nebel before the show. And one of the things, or before the break, and there's something interesting here, guys, and I want your comments on this. I want both of you. I'm going to go to Tom first because Don's going to take up 15 minutes. I'm going to go to Tom first. There's something interesting in my study of radio, which is something that I just love, and I listen constantly. In all of the broadcasts from all of the big guys from 1947 to 1980, there is not one mention of Roswell on any of those broadcasts. And everybody, all the big cats, right, are on these broadcasts, and anybody that matters. And there's not one mention. They'll talk about Manziel, and they'll talk about different famous sightings from around the country, and Otis T. Carr. They'll talk about all of that. But there's not one mention of Roswell anywhere. Tom, have you gone back and checked that out? Any references to Roswell in that period?
Not on the radio or television, Jimmy. I think one of the reasons, well, first and foremost, was the cover-up. It worked for 30 years. Up until 1978, when Jesse Marcel came forward on his ham radio network, and Stanton Friedman contacted him, and thus began the civilian investigation of the Roswell case as we come to know it. But up until that point, the Air Corps, the government was very successful in killing the story. They killed it amongst the military personnel involved. They killed it amongst the civilians in Roswell and the surrounding areas, and they killed it in the press. So there was no story. It faded into oblivion very quickly, and it was not brought. It did not become known again for 30 years. So, also at that time, at least this is my own opinion, is the foremost UFO advocate at that time was a fellow I'm sure you know, Donald E. Kehoe. And Donald Kehoe wrote several books about flying saucers are real, flying saucers from outer space, the UFO, the flying saucer conspiracy. He was my favorite author and advocate at that time. And the thing was that Kehoe would not touch crashed saucer stories. And the reason was that in the mid-1950s, this group of people came forward these so-called contactees, that they made up these stories of being flown around the solar system in Venusian scout ships, and our space brothers were here to help us, and blah, blah, blah. These were totally phony people. They infected the whole phenomenon, unfortunately, and they became the caricature of the whole UFO field. And so Kehoe distanced himself as far as he could from those people, and unfortunately stories of crashed saucers with occupants to Kehoe fell into that category. So that's my belief.
The cover-up almost worked, didn't it, Don? It almost did.
Yeah,
it was pretty good.
It almost did, as Tom just explained. There was little tidbit, little mentions of a crash in New Mexico. Frank Edwards mentioned it in one of his books. I think Flying Saucers, Serious Business. I think Harold Wilkins mentioned it in one of his books from the 60s. So there was always this rumor, this ongoing suspicion that maybe the weather balloon story wasn't the actual true account of what took place in 1947. And even before Jesse Marcel, Lydia Sleppy, who worked as far as with Associated Press out of the Albuquerque Bureau office at that time, had already gone public in the early 70s. And I think Stan even forgets that he had interviewed her as well. And she talked about their attempt to try to transmit the announcement over the wire at that time, back in 47, and it was intercepted by the FBI, instructing them to cease transmission, that it was a matter of national security. So it had long been languishing as far as out there in the ether, and it just that it finally took some of these people to finally, break the bonds of this cover-up, of all this secrecy after all this time, and then the floodgates opened. Then it was just a matter of tracking down all the people like Walter Hott and Judd Roberts and Walt Whitmore Sr., people who were actually mentioned in all the original press accounts. And then not a one of them has ever supported the balloon explanation. Not a one.
Well, when you go back and you listen to the old interviews with Kehoe, and some of them are long, and Kenneth Arnold, too, was somebody else that did a lot of radio back in the day. You could, go back and listen. And for Kenneth, I mean, that happened at the exact same time. So you would think
June
that
24th, just a week, 10 days before, right?
Exactly. So you would think that he would have been up on the national press release and had heard the reports or something on the radio, so he could go, aha, okay. But he never referenced, or Kehoe, in any interviews that I've ever heard. Some of these are really long. In that, and the reason why I want to drive this home is Kehoe will sit there and talk about this case, this case, this case, this case, this case, and not one mention of Roswell over years. And the same thing with, Kenneth Arnold, or you could go back and, anyway, I could name different people, but there's just nothing out there. And we were so dangerously close for this, never coming forward.
Well, when you consider that the story was first reported to the sheriff of Travis County, George Wilcox, as Tom had mentioned.
Right.
And then Frank Joyce at radio station KGFL interviewed the rancher and picked up the story. And so it could have, developed into this worldwide announcement long before the military became involved. But unfortunately, Frank Joyce at the radio station encouraged the sheriff to report this to the 509th at the Roswell Army Airfield. And they immediately took charge. And that's where even as Judd Roberts at the same radio station, when he talked about the threatening phone call that came from the FCC office in Washington, warning them that if they put out a single word about the incident, they would lose their license within 24 hours. So it demonstrated
Sheriff Wilcox, and Don knows this, before he died of Alzheimer's, but when he was still lucid, he said his biggest regret was that he called the military first before he should have called the press first. And as Don said, the story would have gotten out, and the cover-up would not have, most likely would have been too late. But he called the military first, and we can speculate as to why he did, but that was his biggest regret over this particular case.
Whatever happened to the that tape that Joyce made at the radio station?
Well, you're talking about the wire recording.
Yes.
It wasn't Frank Joyce. It was Walt Whitmore Sr., who was the majority owner of that very radio station, KGFL. And when they went up to the ranch to actually grab Mac Brazel for an exclusive, to make sure that they had him in hand, and they hid him out at Whitmore's home that evening.
Right.
And it's the next morning that when the Army is frantic, they're trying to find the rancher, and the very thought that, oh my God, he must have fallen into the hands of the press, and they discover him at Whitmore's home. And they, aside from abducting Brazel, they also confiscate the wire recording that they did with Brazel the evening before. And according to Judd Roberts, who worked at the radio station, who was there during that interview, Brazel talked about the bodies.
Right.
He talked about the bodies at another location. And sadly, it fell into the hands of the military. And I know this is the point that you're trying to drive home, Jimmy, the fact that unlike most other incidents, whether UFO related or not, the fact that the government was able to pounce on this and to put out a phony press release to divert attention for the sole purpose of having it evolve into this weather balloon explanation, and that they were able to then retrieve all the physical evidence, confiscate all that same evidence that fell into the hands of others, including civilians, and control the entire storyline that went out concerning this monumental event. You know, we're talking about the biggest story in the millennium, and yet the government has the full control of all that data, even surpassing that of the president. The fact that you have former presidents such as Clinton still lamenting the fact that after all these years, they could not break, that code of silence.
Wasn't that radio announcer involved in a car accident in California?
Frank Joyce?
Yeah.
Well, I am unaware of that.
Okay, there you go. We'll look into that. Somebody, I'm watching Twitter here, and it's blipping by. Everybody's got a million questions. What about
I would just like to add something, Jimmy, about the press release, the weather balloon story. To accept it, you had to accept it that the men of the 509th Bomb Group. Now, this is the group that ended World War II,
right?
By dropping 2 atomic bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. The 509th Bomb Group was created during World War II, and it still exists today to drop atomic weapons in time of war. The only thing that's changed are the types of ordnance and the aircraft. In 47, it was the B-29, and today they fly the stealth, the B-2 stealth bomber. But it still exists today. And in 47, it was our elite unit, and you have to accept that the 509th Bomb Group, with their fingers on the atomic trigger, couldn't tell the difference between an extraterrestrial spacecraft that came from another solar system and a bunch of tinfoil, balsa wood, string, and rubber.
Yeah, that they were idiots. That's what they want us to accept, the fact that the guys that were the most sophisticated, trained military group on the planet didn't know the difference between a balloon and anything else. That's
Correct.
it. Yeah, forget about flying saucer. Just a balloon or anything else. How about a car, right? You just fill in the blanks. And that it's rather disgusting that's what they want us to believe. And you can't have it both ways. And the other thing is this. I want to make this statement. My first choice would be the press release. That's what I would slide across to the judge. I'd go, okay, this is what you guys said, right here. But you know what the second thing I would do? I really would. I would bring in a psychologist and a photo analyst and have them discuss the look on Jesse Marcel's face in that one photograph when he's holding the debris, because that says it all. It does. A picture, right? 1,000 words. Fill in those blanks, because Jesse didn't want to be there. He looks angry, perplexed, and what's the word that against his will. That's what is on his face.
The fact that he's ordered by General Roger Ramey, who was his base commander's boss. Ramey, the head of the 8th Air Force. And one of the other things that nobody really ever considers is that within an hour after the press release went out, the San Francisco Examiner, for example, they called Ramey's office, and he claimed it was right there, that he had it right in his office, that the radar target and the weather balloon was right there. And then I think the New York Times, they likewise claimed that the story began to change within an hour. So this evolution into the weather balloon was even underway before Marcel arrived in Fort Worth for the weather balloon press conference.
Right.
So in other words, Ramey's already claiming it's right here in my office. It's nothing but a radar target and a clump of neoprene rubber, hours before Marcel even arrived for the press conference with the so-called weather wreckage of the flying saucer. So they were already spinning it. They were already covering it up hours before the balloon press conference.
If you remember, Don, like 3 years ago, you and I it was either on the show or privately. I think it might have been on the show, but it might have been twice. But I had said to you that we are in danger of running out of anybody directly connected back to 1947. The days are, it's ticking past us very quickly. And the most important thing that we can do right now is to grab everybody and continue to document and get it before everybody is gone. Because now, and we're approaching, that when I mentioned that to you then, it was probably 2013. Now we're at 2016. And at some point, the government's going to be able to win and relax if we don't keep our foot on the gas and stay diligent about this. Now the book is out. But do you remember that conversation?
Oh, yes. And as we've often mentioned, the race with the Undertaker. But all the officers are long gone. And all we're finding presently are some of the private first classes, maybe a corporal here and there. Within the last couple of weeks, we found an enlisted man who was with the 603rd Air Engineering Squadron. And we've long known that the 603rd was principally involved in the recovery operation. And this man, who we just found, he still made the comment. He would not talk about it. He would not discuss it. But all he would say was, I've been struggling with this since 1947. Well, that's quite an admission over a damn weather balloon. That it's still bothering him. What, that they got away with the balloon explanation or something else? Now, we're not through with him. We'll continue to, try to, soften our approach. But it demonstrates, and we know it better than anybody, Jimmy, that we're running out of time.
Right. How old is he?
88.
Wow.
This particular one is 88. And my own father, who is 89, going on 90, although in failing health, He is still totally lucid. You can bring up sporting events from 30 years ago, and he can tell you who even played in that particular game. So, yes, we still have such people out there. But, again, we realize that it's still just a handful of survivors.
And, Tom, how many do you know, you remind me of such a black and white guy, but you're not. You're a pretty funny
black
guy.
And white?
Yeah. But in that
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Because of your picture.
Yes, it's your black and white picture. That was good, Don. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. How many are left? I mean, direct. I mean, we've gone through, obviously, there's been hundreds of witnesses that have come forward. But today, directly, when we talk about the Children of Roswell, I mean, how many are actually left to talk with?
Are you talking about the participants or the children?
Anybody that has a direct DNA connection back to Roswell.
Well, of the original participants, you have to realize, Jimmy, that take your average enlisted person back in 1947. It was somewhere around 18 to 20 years old. And today, that person would be 88 or 90 years old. So, I mean, what the demographic tables would say about the mortality, I would say, just as to hazard a guess, that of the participants, certainly all the officers are gone, but of the enlistees, I would say over 90%, maybe 95% are gone. And the ones who are left, you're talking about people with the maladies of old age.
Right.
So that witness pool is almost not available to us anymore. So, and over the years, we have been talking to their children, and we're starting to lose the children as well. Julie Schuster, the daughter of Walter Hout, is gone. And others, but we've been talking to children and grandchildren more and more, and that's where we got the idea of this book, The Children of Roswell, because actually in recent years they've been our most important source of information about what happened back then. But the original participants basically gone. I was actually thrilled to learn this week that we had a live one. One was still alive, not the extraterrestrial, but one of the enlistees who was part of the recovery. And but it sounds like he's not ready to fully talk yet. So, but we certainly will not give up on him.
We're going to be hitting a break really quick. One of the questions that has come up a few times here is Aztec. Did Aztec happen, and were they connected?
Aztec, I believe it occurred, well, at least there's allegedly occurred, it's 1950, I believe.
48, actually.
48, okay. Yeah. Oh, you are there, okay. 1948. And that was a story that was popularized by a features writer for Variety, the Hollywood, I don't know, you wouldn't call it a newspaper, but the tabloid, Frank Scully. In 1950, in a book called Behind the Flying Saucers. It was an instant bestseller, and it was based on his two sources were two oil men, and it's a long story, but it was about the Aztec case. And the Aztec is up in the northwestern corner of New Mexico, the opposite end of the state from Roswell. And apparently, allegedly, a flying saucer crashed with, I think it was over a dozen little occupants with big heads, just like the Roswell story. And shortly thereafter...
Let me jump in. Let me jump in right there, Tom. We'll pick it up on the backside of the break. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Don Schmitt and Tom Carey. Their new book is The Children of Roswell. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with Don and Tom right after the short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Not being able to fall asleep is so frustrating. The tossing, the turning, the adjustment of pillows and blankets. Ugh! Eventually you just decide to get up and start your day really early. It doesn't have to be this way, though. Power Sleep is an all-natural, non-prescription formula that will help you sleep like a baby. It contains neurotransmitter nutrients that promote the production of serotonin, which is responsible for feelings of well-being. Power Sleep is easy to digest and absorb and is made in a base of active probiotics. Don't miss another night of sleep. Order your Power Sleep at EnergyWave.com or call 800-TURTLE-5. Add Power Vites to your cart while you're browsing. Perfect for Monday mornings. They're a complete multivitamin and mineral formula that will give you the energy you need to get through your day. Nourish your immune system and feel great. Get all the info and place your order at EnergyWave.com. Enter code word SLEEP to get free shipping. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air, to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you and Hillary for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With a mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back to Faded Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow us on Twitter right now at JChurchRadio. Come hang out in the sandbox, hashtag F2B. Get your tweet deck flying. Our guest tonight, Don Schmitt and Tom Carey, joining us and discussing their new book, The Children of Roswell. Also, we'll do this at the top of the hour. We're going to give away some passes to the Roswell Festival, courtesy of Don and Tom. And they have authorized all of that action. So we'll do that at the top of the hour. One of the things, guys, that really concerns me, I'm an Army brat, right? So I grew up on Army bases. And one of the fun things when you grow up on an Army base is the MPs have to stop at the gate, right? So you're goofing around as a kid. You can do whatever you want. You get outside of the gate and you can turn around and moon them, right? Because they couldn't come off of the base. And we knew that. And we would play this little cat and mouse game with the MPs. And most of the MPs, were only a few years older than us anyway. They were 18, 19-year-old kids, and we were a few years apart, and it was kind of fun, this cat and mouse. But in 1947, the intimidation and the stuff that was going on in Roswell, was that the Army? I mean, because they're not authorized to go into town and to intimidate the civilian population, are they?
Well, it was the Army Air. Of course, it was the Army Air Corps back in '47. No, you're correct. The only time that the military can go into a town is either in time of war or when martial law has been declared in an extreme emergency, and neither was declared at that point. But this was 1947, as we said at the start of the show. The military was at the peak of their esteem as held by the citizens of the country because of World War II. We had just dispatched the Axis powers, and they were held in high regard. Also, the town of Roswell and the base, the Roswell Army Airfield, there was sort of a symbiotic relationship going on there as the base, the airmen and the officers and listees, they would go into town often, all the time, and purchase goods and services and stuff like that. And so there was a friendly relationship, but it all changed with this particular event. And we have it from witnesses. One who was a National Football League player named Tom Brookshire told me that when this happened, it was like it's like the Winston Churchill speech in 1946. It's like an iron curtain had descended from Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic. Well, there was an iron curtain that went around the base when this happened. People couldn't get in and they couldn't get out. And when that iron curtain was lifted, according to Tom Brookshire and others, it was never the same. There was never that friendliness again. It was the townsfolk distrusted the base, the people on the base. The people on the base had been warned not to talk about this, so they became very distant from the townsfolk. So it had an immediate impact upon the relationship between the people on the base and the people in town.
And was the intimidation also coming from direct orders from the Army to the sheriff and the local police too as well, which, law says shouldn't happen, but it did, didn't
absolutely. It? Absolutely. The sheriff of the Chavez County, based in Roswell, was named George Wilcox. And they used the sheriff, because he was fluent in Spanish, to go around town and intimidate especially the Hispanic population in town and in the surrounding area around Roswell who knew about the crash. Because civilians got there first. They always do out in those remote areas to when there's a crash of a plane, a light plane, whether it's military or civilian. It's always the civilians that get there. And so George Wilcox was dispatched to interview, well, that's a mild term, to threaten the local Hispanic community to either keep quiet or they and their families will be killed. And according to his surviving family, the Wilcox daughters, when asked, they said the Roswell incident destroyed him. It absolutely destroyed him. Well, at the time, we didn't know what to make out of that. But as our investigation continued, we found out about the threats that he had to deliver to the townsfolk, saying, "Well, we're going to, if you keep talking, you're going to be killed, and so are your children." And so that's not a very nice thing, Jimmy. And so he never ran for office again, and his wife did. But the memory of that haunted the whole family for decades. And Mrs. Wilcox, Inez Wilcox, always felt that the military had snuffed out the life of her husband, George, because they roughed him up. They came into the sheriff's office. They roughed him up. They said, "Okay, now, George, if you talk, you will be killed and your family will be killed." Now, this is the sheriff of Chavez County. He helped out the base with taking the phone calls. He went around and delivered this terrible message of termination to the local Hispanic community who might have known something about the crash. And then they come over to him one day in the office, and they put him in a hammerlock and shove him up against the wall and says, "Okay, now if you talk, you and your family are going to be killed." And how nice was that? So,
was there any evidence? Well,
I'm sorry.
Actually, I'll let you finish. I'm sorry about that, Tom.
Yeah. And until recently, we thought that was the end of it. But according to the grandson, George Wilcox Jr., who had never been interviewed before, but he's in this book, they called George out to the base again, the sheriff. And so George thinks, "Oh boy, I wonder what they want this time. They've already roughed me up." So he took 2 deputies with him, and he goes out to the Roswell base. And according to Inez, his wife, now we don't get this from her directly because she never, she died in, I believe, around 1978 or 88, somewhere in there. And we got it from the grandson and the granddaughter, Barbara Duggar, that when George came back from the base, it was clear to his wife that he'd been roughed up again. He was all disheveled. It looked to her like he had been roughed up again. And he had an early onset of Alzheimer's. He even got to the point he attacked his own wife. He didn't know. They said he just went crazy. He just went crazy. And she believed to her dying day that the Air Force had done something more to George that snuffed out his life.
And as Tom mentioned, and as much as the family has now accepted that he possibly was suffering from Alzheimer's, and he died rather young. He was only in his early 60s. But from all the accounts of those who also knew him, he actually went crazy. Something drove him crazy. And there's absolutely nothing, even based on his former chief deputy, who was Tommy Thompson. George was strictly an office man. He didn't deal with the criminal element. He didn't make the arrests. You know, he managed the sheriff's office. And yet, this one incident, and again, over a weather balloon, as his own daughter, Phyllis McGuire, has said, it destroyed him, as Tom just mentioned. It destroyed him.
In all of your interviews that you guys have done, was there any evidence of the Army operating in plain clothes? You know, with the intimidation and, you know, not in uniform?
Well, what's interesting is the third photo lab at Roswell. There were over 100 personnel in that particular squadron. And the thought that they needed 100 photographers on the base is a bit of a stretch. In fact, Vernon Zorn, who was part of that squadron, said that most of them were spies. Most of them just went around town with cameras around their necks just as a front, and were able to, you know, get into situations that they wouldn't have been able otherwise. The late Major Charles McGee, who guarded the West Gate at the Roswell Armory Airfield. He described to us that for 2 to 2.5 years, that officers would exit through the west gate, and it was a 2-track. It was an unpaved road that circled around the west side of town, so these officers could bypass Roswell itself. And they would ride out, they would go out to the crash site, out to the debris field. And there they would put on cowboy ranch garb, ranch clothes. And they'd get on horseback, and they would ride through the crash site, still searching for physical evidence. After heavy rains, they would still go out and check to make sure that every last piece of physical evidence had been recovered. And this went on for years, and that was according to Major Charles McGee. We've also heard of plainclothes people. Frank Joyce talked about how his boss pulled up in front of the radio station, and he was told to get into the back seat, and there was a plainclothes gentleman sitting, not saying a word, and they took him for a ride out to the ranch, where he ran into Mac Brazo, also in the same ranch house, and they were basically just held there for some time before they then were allowed to come back into town. So there was a lot of talk about suits. We know, for example, that there were even Secret Service agents who arrived in Washington. We even named those in previous books, who were assigned by then President Truman to serve as his representative, overseeing the entire operation. So we've long heard that there were all types of strange, unfamiliar people, both in town and on the base, including the base hospital.
Just sitting here, Jimmy, I thought of one to answer your question. There was a fellow, his name was Roland Manah. It's a funny spelling, but it's pronounced Manah. He was an MP who was in one of the jeeps that escorted when the ship was struck, we believe it was struck by lightning, or it was or an internal explosion of some sort that exploded the ship. But the inner cabin, or a capsule of some sort, withstood the initial blast and continued on another 35 miles and came to rest just north of town, about 30 miles north of town. And there were, we believe, 3 occupants in the ship, 2 dead and 1 still alive. But Roland Manah was in a jeep that escorted the craft that was remaining, this egg-shaped craft that was left after the explosion, right through the center of town. It was placed on a low buoy, and it was escorted by armed MPs in jeeps. And Roland Manah was one of those. We located him several years ago, but he was dead. But his son, Roland Jr., said that yes, he was intimidated. He was originally told to never talk about it, what had taken place when he left the Air Force several decades earlier. But in the ensuing decades, Roland Jr. said, yes, periodically these 2 fellas in dark suits would just visit with my father. And after they would leave, they would say, well, Dad, what do they want? They keep coming here all the time. And he says, well, they just want to talk to your father about something that happened a long time ago. And what that certainly was to remind him of his security oath. So that went on for decades after the event.
Dennis just retweeted. He said, okay, did Aztec happen or not? Or was it just a story in the tabloids?
Well, it started out as the Frank Scully book, Behind the Flying Saucers, was based on a tale told to him by 2 oil men. One was a Dr. G-E-E, and I think his real name was Gebauer. I can't remember the name of the other one. but they were trying to sell something they called a doodle bug that helped you find oil, and it was a scam. But he believed the story. He went with it and published Behind the Flying Saucers. Now, shortly after that, investigative journalist for the San Francisco Chronicle named, I believe it was A.P. Khan, Khan, investigated and found out that the two oil men were con artists. At least that was the story as he found it, that they were con artists. He published about this, and it discredited the entire Aztec crash scenario in Frank Scully's book. So that was it. The story died, and until I guess I don't know, 3-4 years ago, the story was reopened by Scott Ramsey and his wife, and they published the book Incident at Aztec. The problem I have with it is that with Roswell, you have so many people involved, civilians, military, hundreds of them. With this Aztec alleged crash up in the northwestern part of New Mexico in 1948, very limited sources, very small number. And right now, if you ask me, I'm straddling the fence, whether it really happened or there's not enough to really decide one way or the other. So I'm open to the suggestion. If more information comes forward that will convince me, well, then that might change my mind. But right now, I'm sort of straddling the fence, as I am with somebody like a Robert Lazar, straddling the fence. So unfortunately, that's not a good position to be in, straddling the fence, but that's where I am on the Aztec case.
And what about Corona? And also the stories that have been out there about the I think it was a university in Pennsylvania, right? The students that were there,
the archaeologists, correct?
Yes, and so what about all of that? I mean, does this tie everything together, or is it just is it starting to turn into urban legend?
Well, you mentioned Corona, and I'll let Tom address the archaeologist, because that was the principal reason that he even came into the investigation, because of his own anthropological background. But Corona is the nearest town to the debris field location. Lincoln County, Mac Braza was the foreman on the J.B. Foster Ranch back at the time. We believe it was the late evening of July 2nd. And failing to secure any cooperation or anyone having any answers as to the unusual, the bizarre, the strange debris that he was showing to his neighbors, and going into Corona to Wade's Bar, and descriptions of them passing pieces of the wreckage from one end of the bar to the other, no one able to provide any answers. And then he would then make the long trek 75 miles to the southeast, to Roswell, and that's where he would first report it to the authorities. But you mentioned the University of Pennsylvania as far as the archaeologist, and that's where Tom, did his initial research with us, trying to determine if there was such a team of researchers in New Mexico at that time. I'll let him take it from there.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
The original story had the crash occurring on the plains of San Augustine,
right,
150 miles to the west, and allegedly the crash was discovered by a group of archaeologists from the University of Pennsylvania in 1947. So that's where I entered the case. Because I lived in Philadelphia. The University of Pennsylvania is in Philadelphia. I had an anthropological and archaeological background, so I figured, well, let me have a crack at it. And the leader of this group was according to the story, was a archaeologist named Van Buskirk.
That's right.
Alfred Van Buskirk. Well,
right.
To make a long story short, I found the Buskirk that met the description, but his name was not Van Buskirk, just Buskirk, and he said he had nothing to do with this at the time. He was over in Arizona doing his PhD research on something over there in Arizona. Well, we found out shortly thereafter that the Plains of St. Augustine story was not, if it happened at all, it was not part of the Roswell story. And we don't think anything happened there in 47. If anything happened there, it was later, but it was not part of the Roswell story. So I continued on and interviewed every living archaeologist that I could find that was in the field in New Mexico in 47. Unfortunately, I think they're all dead now, but this is the early 90s. And I found out that there was a team of archaeologists that came upon this inner cabin that we talked about a few minutes ago, just north of Roswell. They were not from the University of Pennsylvania, but from Texas Tech University in Lubbock. And the leader of the group was a fellow named Curry Holden, William Curry Holden. And we interviewed him, and he said, yes, that he was there. He saw everything. And I interviewed all of the students that were in his summer class, because that's what he was teaching that summer. And they all denied knowing anything about this. But you have to realize that they had all been threatened themselves, that they would lose all of their school funding, because they were mostly archaeology students. Some were graduate students. But I also went down to the University of Pennsylvania and interviewed several professors. And one was mentioned by William Moore in his the Roswell Incident book, and he denied that he knew anything about this. The other one was a fellow by the name of John Cotter, Cotter, who lied to me that he did not know anything about it. Well, he was in 47. He was moving from his locus, where he was conducting a dig in Arizona, to a place in Missouri. And according to my calculation, his move put him in New Mexico at the right time when this happened. And I had a fellow worker in Philadelphia who said, well, geez, I had a fellow who told we were doing some field work in Pennsylvania, and he told us all about the Roswell crash, but she wouldn't tell me who it was, other than to say, well, he published a lot, and his initials were CJ, Charlie, CJ. I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So I'm looking for a CJ, and then it finally dawned on me she just had reversed the initials, JC, John Cotter. So Cotter knew enough about the Roswell case when I interviewed him to interest me, but he lost me when he said, well, you know what, what happened there? I said, no, tell me. He says, it was a V-2 rocket carrying a chimpanzee. And that's when I said, thank you, Professor, I'll see you later.
Right.
But he knew too much about it. And from the archaeology student at the University of Pennsylvania, he was the one, in my opinion, who was there at the site with Curry Holden and saw everything.
Right here, we need to take a break. We'll do that right now. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guests tonight are Don Schmitt and Tom Carey. We're discussing their new book, Children of Roswell. This is Fade to Black, and we'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
If your home has hard water and it's leaving white spots, then it's likely that limescale is clogging your pipes. Limescale can cost hundreds of dollars a year in wasted energy and early appliance breakdown. HydroCare systems available at Wave Home Solutions prevent and remove limescale with just a simple filter change every 3 years. There are no salts, chemicals, or magnetic coils. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, just go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
If you're a talk radio fan, AccessRadio.net lets you listen to the best talk shows anytime and from anywhere. Works on your mobile or landline phone, and there's no cost if you have unlimited minutes. No need to use your data. Find your favorite talk show listen lines and discover new ones. Now you can listen on your schedule. Go to AccessRadio.net. That's AccessRadio.net. Save your favorite listen lines today.
Hi, I'm Richard Dolan. When I'm not hosting my radio program, The Richard Dolan Show on KGRA, or writing new books on UFOs, I run a publishing company. I'm proud to say that Richard Dolan Press has published some of the most fascinating books available on UFOs and related subjects. They include Dr. Bruce Maccabee's classic analysis of the UFO cover-up, David Marler's breakthrough book on triangular UFOs, Dr. Richard Sauter's unique work on underground bases, and other classics by Grant Cameron, Chase Kletsky, and Dr. Bob Wood, not to mention intriguing works by Eve Lorgan and Laurie MacDonald that deal with truly bizarre phenomena. I'm proud to publish such high-quality and original works, and there are several amazing books about to be released over the next few months. Go to richarddolanpress.com to learn more.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go back, Lee Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Don Schmitt, Tom Carey with us, discussing their new book, Children of Roswell. Now, going to give away a full pass to the Roswell Festival, 323-825-5045. And Tom, I'm not going to let you do this. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to let Don be the guilty party. He's going to authorize.
Always a good choice.
Yes.
Always a good choice.
Yeah. So make it a good question, 323-825-5045. And if Don says it's a good enough question, we'll give you a full weekend pass to the Roswell Festival. Now, back to a couple of things that I kind of want to deal with. Number one, the Jesse Marcel home. It's still there, isn't it? Right? Yes. Why don't we do a crowdfunding? Let's go buy that house and take that thing apart. I mean, let's dismantle that thing to the ground because there is something hidden there.
Tom would remember this a number of years ago. Even the executive producer of a Roswell movie, Paul Davids, we had even considered the three of us buying the house.
Right. I talked to Paul about that. Yeah.
That was specifically, after there had been talk about, as, historically, known that Jess Marcel Sr. on his return trip from the debris field back to the base, stopped at their private residence about 2 o'clock in the morning. He rouses his son, Jess Jr., and his wife, Viet, takes them to the kitchen, and there's debris scattered all over the kitchen floor. And the talk thereafter was that Mrs. Marcel would sweep out the kitchen through the back door. and that they had just recently poured a concrete slab patio, and that the footings were still open. So something could have been hidden under the patio, so to speak.
Right.
And I'm talking to the head of counterintelligence, who was the one who accompanied Major Marcel out to the debris field originally, and that was Captain Sheridan Cabot, plain clothes, counterintelligence corps, and the Cabots and the Marcels frequented, as far as company with one another. They played cards, they played bridge, and according to Mary Cabot, she described how on this one occasion, shortly after the entire Roswell affair, they were visiting with the Marcels, but this particular time, the women remained in the front room, and it was the husbands who were in the kitchen. And what were they doing? But they were heating up a piece of the wreckage on the Marcel stove. Now, this is after the balloon explanation has stuck, that everything is quieted down and everything's returned back to normal. And this is coming from Mary Cabot. And I'm talking with her over the phone, and I hear a grumbling in the background. And now, mind you, her husband would never admit anything. For the first few times we interviewed him, he would even deny he was even in Roswell in 1947. And we chipped away to the point that he finally, something happened, but I wasn't involved. Nothing that I know about. Well, nonetheless, as often as we still kept going back to him, his wife Mary just conveys this story to me. I hear this grumbling in the background, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh no, we're both in trouble. And her husband grabs the phone and he yells out, "Don, did you boys ever think about breaking up that old Marcel patio?" Now, from conceding, from admitting nothing, to finally just, why don't you guys go break up that old patio? Well, the problem that is still, the obstacle that remains is the fact that future residents after the Marcels, they built the family room over the old patio. So it's now entirely enclosed. And so you have to literally destroy a portion of the house. Now, we've been looking in the ground-penetrating radar, and specifically concrete-penetrating radar, which ironically was developed by the Army. So without telegraphing any further action on our part, it's something that we still are looking into.
I'm going to let everybody know right now, I've got some issues with the phone lines and the calls that are coming in. I can't bring in. I'm going to reset right now. I apologize for that, and I'm going to work on this right now. But there you go. I know Twitter's going to go, church isn't picking up the calls. Church isn't picking up the call. There's something going on right now. All right, and I'll see if I can do that in real time.
Fault.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Jim Carey.
But I've been authorized by Don to give away 100 pairs of full passes before. Right, Don? You said that was cool. You said that was cool. Now, I want to ask, we've been talking about the intimidation and, your body, you'll be lost in the desert kind of stuff and never found again. And these kind of tactics, prison, fines that were going on. Did this happen to other characters that were in play here, like Glenn Dennis? Did he receive those threats too?
Yes, Glenn. I don't know that he received the death threats, but certainly the military at the base visited his house. Glenn was not home at the time, and Glenn had his story was that he had been out to the base delivering an injured airman when he saw all this wreckage, and he ran into a nurse who told him to get out of there, that he shouldn't be there, and he met her the next day, and she told him that there was a crash in little bodies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Glenn himself had received calls from the base for child-sized caskets. So he's thinking, my goodness, was there an accident that he was unaware of involving children, which of course there wasn't. So the Air Force, the Air Corps figured he had seen and heard enough. So they visited his home and talked to his father. Glenn was not there at the time, and they visited and said that Glenn was in trouble out at the base, and that if he was smart, he wouldn't say anything about it. And as far as I know, that's pretty much as far as the threat went. I don't believe at that point they issued a death threat to the father, and
what about,
so, yes.
And a couple of other things. I know you guys were close. Has it ever been confirmed who the red-headed sergeant was?
Well, yes.
We don't necessarily know who the red-headed sergeant was specifically. We know that even the Air Force speculated, and Captain James McAndrews' Roswell case closed study on the anthropomorphic wooden crash dummies, and they attempted to make some correlation to a number of red-headed officers in the military at that time.
Right.
But the one person we know for a fact who was involved, and interestingly enough, the rancher's son, Bill Brazo Jr., when he recounted how the military retrieved a number of pieces that he had secured. He had enough pieces that he filled up a cigar box months after the military cleanup. And he happened to make mention when he was asked about finding anything, and his reply was that he had found a few scraps, and who should be at his door the very next day but an officer, a captain, who we were able to identify as Emerson Armstrong. What's interesting is that Brazo remembered the name Armstrong. He remembered Armstrong, which then enabled us to find that Emerson Armstrong was out of Fort Bliss at that time, and he was in charge of UFO investigation, or more specifically, unidentified aerial objects for the Air Force. And this was in 1949, 2 years after the incident. So whether he had red hair, in fact, when we found him, and I questioned him specifically as to his hair color,
right,
he wasn't amused. He wouldn't answer.
Yeah. And the infamous nurse, who was she?
Well, that is a good. I believe we figured this one out. That was a story told by Glenn Dennis, that the nurse he met at the hospital when he took the injured airman over there and saw all these strange medical people running around. His friend he gave us the name of Naomi Maria Self. And we spent several years looking for Naomi Maria Self. And he tells us, oh, well, I gave you a phony name. Oh, well, thanks, Glenn. We only spent a lot of time in a couple of years on this. And as you know, Jimmy, when you're in a court of law and you're caught lying, you are done. You are impeached. Your word is stricken as being a fabricator. And so you're finished as a witness. But since that time, we believe Glenn Dennis's story about the caskets, receiving the phone calls from the base about the caskets, is true because we've corroborated that with other witnesses that recall Glenn talking about that at the time in 1947. The nurse story, we believe he inherited from someone else and accepted it as his own when he came forward in the late 80s to start telling his story. And what it was that a doctor from Roswell, I won't give his name because it's still an open file, and his son is still alive, who's also a doctor. But a doctor from Roswell was called out to the base to attend to the one that was alive, the live alien. And he took his nurse with him. Well, they had a number of nurses in this clinic, and he took a nurse with him. Well, it turns out that this nurse, her husband, worked at the Ballard Funeral Home as an embalmer. And who else worked at the Ballard Funeral Home as embalmer but Glenn Dennis?
Right.
So you have to assume that the nurse tells her husband the story, and he tells Glenn the story, and Glenn assumes it as his own. And he knew, and what he did is he set up, a construct of a nurse at the base, Elaine Fanton. He said, well, he never did give us the right name, but he described her in such a way that it was really easy to pick her out from the pictures of from the base yearbook. Well, he knew that she died early in the mid-1950s, so she was long gone. So he used her as the model in his story of the nurse. But we now believe that the nurse was from this clinic in Roswell that went out to the base with one of the doctors, and her husband was an embalmer who told Glenn Dennis the story.
And what about? I always wondered about her, and I had heard a few different stories about her that she was immediately right after that week of July 8th that she was transferred out. And that
there were numerous personnel transferred off the base immediately thereafter. And Glenn's original story was that she was unavailable for his failed attempts to get any follow-up, any additional information from her at that time. And then he was notified, he was told that she'd been transferred to a base over in England, and he sent a number of letters which were not responded to, and eventually they all came back rubber band together with the word deceased written across the top envelope. So Glenn was then supposedly told that she and a number of other nurses were killed in a plane crash within weeks after the incident. The particular nurse that Tom mentioned, we know that she was transferred to England after the incident. There was no plane crash. She was not killed, as far as Glenn would say that he had been informed, but that she did die of a childhood disease in the mid-1950s. So it was shortly after the incident, as far as a particular lifespan would go. But as to the particular nurse involved, and Tom remembers when we confronted Glenn specifically, and our conclusion still remains that he was actually having an affair with the nurse. And his first wife was still alive at that time. He had remarried, and so it would have been quite embarrassing if that part of the story should have come out.
One of the more interesting chapters in the book is Chapter 5 about Sergeant Melvin Brown, and who was, I'll let you guys tell the story, but it's a pretty, because it involves money. He's just a cook, by the way, and the transporting of ice out into the desert. I'll let you guys tell the story, but that, again, it's intimidation and everything else comes into play. And he also had a top security clearance.
Tom, let me, because I have a postscript to the Brown story. And we were fortunate enough to get his widow, Ada, and his two daughters, Harriet and Beverly, interviewed over in England. Brown was another one of those who was transferred to England shortly after the incident. He would marry, they'd have two daughters and live out the rest of his life. He died in the mid-'80s. And prior to his death, he just went on and on about the fact that it was not a weather balloon, that they had been paid off, that there was a secret a savings account that was placed in a trust on behalf of the family. And he would recount how he was posted behind an ambulance truck and told to keep his eyes forward, and the first chance he got, he pulled up a tarp, and there were a number of the bodies. Now, you mentioned that he had a top security clearance. Everybody who was on that base, because of the atomic bomb, had a top security clearance. So he worked with K-Squad. Now, there was a pig farm east of the base at that time, run by Clarence Pollard. And his son Raymond would each morning go onto the base with a flatbed truck with empty garbage pails and pick up all the scraps, all the waste from the mess hall. He would exchange as far as empty for full pails full of basically food garbage that he would then feed to the hogs. Well, anyway, on this particular morning, right after the press release went out announcing the capture of the flying saucer, now, mind you, Melvin Brown was a sergeant, Sergeant Melvin Brown. But this particular morning, Pollard would overhear a sergeant on the loading dock talking to two others, talking about the strange people at a crash north of Roswell, north of town. Now, Mr. Pollard is now 90 years old. And the fact that he's been telling this story to his family since the very time it happened. How he had overheard this sergeant, and Melvin Brown was a sergeant with K-Squad, that very same unit, talking about the strange people. And as so often they were described, the little people, the little men. They weren't talking about aliens, they weren't talking about spacemen, but they were clearly talking about something unusual, something that was not like their neighbors next door.
The last thing that I want to talk about, the whole intimidation thing, inside of our own borders just infuriates me. But the last thing I want to talk about, we've only got a few minutes left. I talk about evidence all the time. It's evidence. And certainly for the two of you, and for the rest of us, really, one of the most frustrating things about Roswell is the debris. And I know that there's some of it out there. But then we have Papy Henderson. And I'll let you, we've got 5 minutes left. I don't know who wants to handle this, but here's a case of somebody that probably did get some debris for himself, and he was one of the pilots that flew the debris to Wright-Patterson. Can you share that with us?
Yes, Oliver Papy Henderson, in 1947, he was a captain and a pilot in the 1st Air Transport Unit. That's sort of like the commercial airlines of the Air Force, where they flew officers and enlisted men around for various reasons. And he was tasked, because he had a top secret, he was trusted, and so he flew not only some of the wreckage, but he flew some of the bodies to Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio on July the 8th, 1947. This would be the same day as the first newspaper headline that went out. And he had seen the bodies on the floor of the hangar, the big hangar, P3, known as Building 84 today. And he said that he told this to a friend of his, a dentist named John Crumschroeder, and later to his wife, Sappho. I don't know that he mentioned the bodies to Sappho, but he did to Crumschroeder that they had large heads. That was the thing, and it just haunted him. He didn't like looking at them. He didn't like looking at dead things. He said they were short with large heads. So he flew those to right field. And also, he had kept a piece of the wreckage because they were boxing up the wreckage at the same time at that big hangar and putting in the boxes. So he kept a piece of the wreckage at home. And he showed that to Kromschroeder, who, besides being a dentist, he was also a hobbyist with involving metallurgy. So he was very interested in this. And so he let Kromschroeder have it for a day or two, and Kromschroeder comes back. He says, I don't know what this is. Where did you get that? And he said, well, it was a crash out in the desert, blah, 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 blah. So Kromschroeder is interviewed in 1991 for this big confab in Washington, D.C. of witnesses to the Roswell case. And so what happened to that piece? And it turns out that, according to Kromschroeder, at some point, Papy Henderson sent it back to the Air Force. He just felt it was the right thing to do, and so he sent it back. But there's a case where he kept the secret from his wife, Sappho, until he saw in the early 1980s that the story was on the front page of one of the tabloids. As you leave a supermarket, they still have these tabloids today. It's the Star and the Globe and Esquire and things like that. Here it was, the front page story. So he says, well, dear, I've been wanting to tell you for years, and it looks like the story's out now, so I can tell you about I was the pilot that flew the wreckage to Roswell. I mean, from Roswell to Wright-Patterson. That was me. So that's how we got to learn his story from his wife, Sappho, his daughter, Catherine, and from his good friend, John Kromschroeder. And unfortunately, as I said, that piece of wreckage that he had that mystified Kromschroeder, he sent that back.
I want to pop, man. I have got a stack of phone calls here, and I just can't figure it out. So after I let you guys go here in a few minutes, or in about a minute, I'll give away those passes, and I'll reset the phone lines after this. But the book is out. I know that I have a pre-release version. Is the book available now?
Absolutely.
Yes, the book is available, Barnes & Noble, and certainly Amazon Books.
Absolutely great read, by the way, and good illustrations and all of that. The book is The Children of Roswell. Thomas Carey, Donald Schmitt. I'll see you guys in a couple of months out there in Roswell. Now, also, you guys, one of you, if not both of you, you got to take Rita and I. We got to go out to the crash site, and I expect a personal tour, and I know that that's going to happen. So we'll get that out of the way. But Can I take like a metal detector? Are there any restrictions on goofing around out there?
We've had 4 archaeological digs to date. It is Bureau of Land Management property. We're the only ones that really have permission to be out there, and so if it's with us, they're pretty responsive. They let such things slide. So detect for your heart's content.
I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. And thank you guys so much, again, for all that you do. And we're running out of time. Keep your foot on the gas. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you. Truly. Great show.
Absolutely. Always. And we'll see you in like 2 months. See you in 2 months.
That's right.
All right, guys.
All right. Look forward to it.
Keep rolling
Great
that
time.
rock uphill. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tom Carey and Don Schmitt, everybody. The book is The Children of Roswell. And RoswellInvestigator.com, you can go there too as well. But Amazon, Barnes & Noble, you can go and pick it up now. It's a great read. Absolutely fantastic. Highly recommended. And so I will give away passes right after this break. I'll reset the phone lines. And there you go. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. You want to go to Roswell? Give me a call right after the break. 323-825-5045. I'll be right back.
Hey, what up, y'all? Sugar Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Angioprim can clean blocked arteries and improve blood flow in all parts of your body. Angioprim is liquid oral chelation. It's not new science. 50 years of research has gone into chelation, and now there's Angioprim. Easy, simple, liquid oral chelation. You take it with juice before breakfast and forget about it. Angioprim works fast, unlike old-fashioned chelation that takes hours. The first thing Angioprim users say is they have more energy, more strength, more endurance. Increased circulation and blood flow will make all your body parts work better. Log on now at angioprim.com to get more information on how you can get started and start feeling better and doing more. Lots more. Talk to a trained Angioprim consultant or go to angioprim.com for help. Call Angioprim toll-free at 877-882-7221. That's Angioprim at 877-882-7221. Get the facts about Angioprim. Begin living the life you want, doing the things you used to do again with Angioprim.
Hello, Fadernauts. Are you looking for the ultimate Bluetooth speaker system? Well, check this out. The Studio Dome surround sound system, featuring the Studio Dome 1 SD1 and the Studio Boombox SBB wireless Bluetooth speakers, is the perfect way to get surround sound without all of the cable headaches. With its own hard shell custom carrying case for taking your surround sound experience on the go. Each hard shell case comes packed with an SBB, 2 SD1s, cables, and power. It's just $99, and you use the promo code Jimmy, and you get yourself some free shipping. Once again, Studio Dome brings you the best deal on the net, anywhere. Just go to the Studio Dome banner, JimmyChurchRadio.com, promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Tappy.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Yeah, welcome back, Fade to Black. Thank you, Don Schmitt, Tom Carey. Nobody knows more about Roswell than those two guys. Going to be hanging out with them at the Roswell Festival, June 30th through July 3rd in Roswell, New Mexico. I cannot wait. I didn't know that was BLM land now. But certainly, if anybody's got the right credentials, the street cred, the get-out-of-jail-free card to go on some BLM land out there at the Brazel Ranch, Foster Ranch. Go out there and do this. I cannot wait. And I'm serious. Metal detector city is what that is. I'm going to find me something. You know, it's going to be a little scratched and bent up by the time I get it out of there, but I'm going to leave with something. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, Jimmy. This is Danae.
What was your name?
Danae.
Hey, Danae. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you tonight? Great show tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. But and I apologize for the phones if you were calling in earlier, but I truly could not pick up the lines. Were you calling in?
Yes, I was, but that's no problem. I tried to tweet you, too, and I'm no good at that, so I'm still learning. You can hear my dog all excited to talk to you in the background, too.
There you go, Danae, but I apologize for that. Seriously, there was 10, 15 calls banged up, and I couldn't do it, and that's it, you know. Anyway, you made it in. How are you? Everything good? It was pretty good interview. Did you learn something?
I did. You know, the curious question I've had for years that is still no one seems to answer for me is I had heard a radio interview years ago, and they were talking about one of the ladies that actually took a piece of the material that she could crumple up, and it would go back into its normal shape. Do you remember that?
Yeah. That was she was the daughter of...
like daughter or mom or somebody.
No, she was a daughter, but yeah, you're absolutely right. And that was some of the first discussion of that, the memory metal.
So I'm wondering if that was Mylar.
Yeah. Oh, I saw your tweet. Yeah, I saw your tweet.
That's what we call Mylar today, because I still haven't figured out who brought Mylar to the surface.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was some alien technology. Yeah, no doubt. Well, Danae, can you make it to Roswell?
You know what? I can definitely try. Since I have all my family back in Colorado, and I got to kind of plan a trip to go back and see Mom. This would be the perfect opportunity. If not, I can get back in touch with you, and we can definitely get those tickets to somebody that can use them.
Okay, so this is what I want you to do, Danae. It's very simple. Go to our website. I've got your phone number right here, okay? Go to our website and click on the contact form and send Rita an email, or you can just go to rita@jimmychurchradio.com and just put in the email your phone number, because I have your phone number right here. And then we'll get you all set up. Simple?
Jimmy, thank you so much. I truly appreciate what you're doing.
No, I thank you, okay? And come hang out with us in Roswell, and I guarantee you will see Don Schmitt's perfect hair. All right?
I'm all about it.
All right. Thank you so much today. You have a great night.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
See, that's what I'm talking about right there. And I have to do a couple of things before I get this out of control. There it is. Okay. All right. See? It's that simple. You want to go to Roswell? Give me a call. You know what? I'll give away, because I couldn't answer phones earlier and I feel bad about it. I'll give away one more. All right? Let's see. I'll take whoever's calling first. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
This is Dino. How are you doing this evening?
Hey, Dino. You want to go to Roswell?
You know, I would love to. I just can't do it logistically. It was hard enough getting into contact. Thank you.
Are you going to go? Are you going to go to the New Living Expo?
I'm going to try to make that.
Okay, this is the last time I take your phone call. That's it. I just offered you passes to two of the great conferences, and you got it.
In San Mateo, I can go to that one.
Yeah, it's at San Mateo.
Okay, you're going to give me a pass to that?
Yeah, of course.
Wonderful. I will take it. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Here's what I wanted to say, but I guess they had to go. Don and I indeed got to hang out with him at Contact. Indeed, a gentleman. We kind of liked each other. He indeed is neat and well dressed. Mm-hmm. But at one time, I was going to mention, I think he would have talked about it if you would have let me on. What messed his hair up was I asked him if he'd ever been threatened, and he had told this story before. And I wanted him to tell it again to the new Fadernauts.
Oh, the Men in Black story in the Suburban?
If this was the same one, he was leaving. He and I don't know if that he was there with Tom, but he said his friend had a very high-performance muscle car.
Right.
They told no one. He just said, let's drive up to Roswell. I want to interview one person. He said they didn't tell anybody. They didn't do anything. And he said they decided, we'll just dead-headed back, I think, to Arizona where he was living. So he said we left about 3 a.m, beautiful desert night, no one on the road, and he said 3 black vehicles followed him. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yep.
And it got pretty scary, and he told me what happened, how they tried to lose him, and they had the muscle in the car, and they were doing 85 miles an hour, but one of the 3 cars kept up with him. So they were definitely someone after them. If anybody doubts that this is serious stuff.
Yeah. And what else did you learn? You're right. The Men in Black freak me out, just in general.
Oh, creepy.
You know, so and again, Dino, you want to go to the New Living Expo? We'll get you hooked
Definitely.
up. All right, man. Have a good night.
All right, and I guess I'll get an email, huh?
Yeah, we'll get you hooked up, man. I'll talk.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dino. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, Jimmy, it's Johnny D.
Johnny D. How are you, man?
Doing good, doing good. You know, I already have tickets for Contact, and now I can't go. So I would love to. I could probably trade you those with George Norrie's dinner for the Roswell.
Okay? So what you're saying is you have passes to Contact and tickets to the George Norrie birthday party
Luncheon.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. And you want to trade those for the Roswell passes.
For Roswell, I can do that.
Okay, all right. You know what? We'll do that, and then we'll give away your passes to somebody else, and that's very noble of you, man. So,
Very cool, very cool.
So all you have to do, just write Rita. I've got your phone number right here, okay? And write Rita at jimmychurchradio.com, and we'll try to figure out how we're going to do this deal. I like that. We're haggling. We're haggling live on the air, and there's nothing like a good haggle, right, Johnny?
That's true. That's true. I was there last year, and I did the RV camping thing, and it was quite a trip. Quite a trip.
Yeah, it's such a which one are you talking about? Contact or Roswell?
Contact. I didn't make it to Roswell last year, but I will with your tickets this year, and I will bring the little RV with me.
Oh, yeah. Well, is that a promise?
It is.
All right,
absolutely.
man.
And I have a metal detector. And I will be there.
You know what's funny? Me saying that live on the air, right, with Don and Tom going, yeah, man, we'll get you in. I don't think they realized how many Fadernauts are going to be standing there with metal detectors.
It'll be amazing.
Yeah, can we go too? Yeah, it's going to be great, man. I can't wait. All right, Johnny, we'll get you all hooked up, brother. Thank you, and thank
Very
you for
good,
everything.
Jimmy. Thank you very much.
All right, man, have a good
Okay,
night.
thanks.
We'll take care of everything.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Grazie. Okay, bye-bye.
Let's go back to the phones. Let's do it like this. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey.
You're live. Turn me down in the background.
Oh, sorry. I'm very, very sorry.
That's
I'm doing it.
That's
You're
okay.
gone. Hi. This is Miss X, okay? And I want to ask you something.
What's up?
What if someone had some information but was so paranoid and so afraid because of the gazillions of people that listen to you, there's no way I'm going to mention anything over the air. But I'd sure like to get it to someone that you just had on the air to kind of give them a heads up on something.
Well, then the simple way to do that is to write Rita at jimmychurchradio.com. And
no computer, nuh-uh.
Well, then,
No kidding.
but that's just about it. I mean, there's no.
You can't give them my phone number?
I could, the one that I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
Okay, and you said this is great. This is what we call live radio. Okay, and you said
this is important. It's not BS. It's I don't need no 15 minutes of fame, or don't need any more visits from MIBs, or been there, done that. But for history, it's important, and it might, and there's not much time left, so it's important.
Okay, hang
It's
on.
got to be a thing.
Let's see.
I'm willing to do that.
Okay, 9. Okay, I've got it. I've got everything in front of me. Okay, and I'll see what I can do. And what I want you to do is have a great, safe rest of your evening.
Will do.
And thank you for the phone call. Very interesting. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's what you call live radio right there. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
It's Tammy, Jimmy.
Hey, Tammy. How are you?
I'm fine. Hey, when you're out at Roswell, would you do me a favor?
I'll try. It depends on what it is.
Okay.
And coming from you, it could be almost anything. So
you are so mean.
you're supposed to laugh, Tammy. Tammy, you're supposed to laugh.
No, I'm not laughing.
Okay.
What I want you to do is there were two generals on two of the air bases, basically, airports. They're in Roswell. One was Ted Conrad. He was a colonel. He was for Air Force. And on the other one was John Conrad. He was a general in the Army. Now, their brother, Vern, was part of the cleanup crew, also a scientist. And I don't hear anything about the three of them from anybody but what they used to tell us. And I'd be interested in finding out how much people knew because their families are still alive here in Oregon.
That's interesting. Well, wasn't this is my memory right now. Wasn't there a Conrad that was at Rendlesham too as well?
That was yes, and he was also at Roswell, sweetheart.
Huh. Yeah.
And
okay.
He was the base leader.
Well, keep that. Do me a favor, Tammy. Put all of that in an email and get that to me because I'll forget. And just put that in, and I will see what I can do. And I'll
okay, yeah.
I'll get it over to Don and Tom and get to the bottom of it. And I'm just that would be a weird connection.
That's all I want you to do is to find out a little bit more for me because they were old and pretty much alcoholics when I heard the stories. Basically, only when they were together and when they were drunk. So.
Well, yeah.
Okay, I would
but
love
wouldn't that be funky if there was a connection between Rendlesham and Roswell? That's kind of bizarre. Yeah. What are the odds of that? But I'll look into it. Get that to me, and I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Good night, Tammy. And that's what I love about live radio and this audience and taking phone calls. And that was an interesting phone call from Miss X, wasn't it? All right. Let's see, how much time do we have left here? All right. I'll give away, if we can pull it off. If you want to go to Roswell, you can do it. 323-825-5045. I'll give away one more pair. All right. Not one more pair, one more pass. Pair is the wrong word, even though I could probably get that worked out too as well. Okay. Now, on to some crazy stuff. I've been talking about this for the last 2 days, and here we go again. Today, Iran test-fired 2 more ballistic missiles. This is according to their state media, just a day after they did their missile tests that were in violation of the UN resolution. And the missiles capable of reaching Israel, apparently, were marked with a statement in Hebrew. And I'm quoting here, Israel must be wiped off the earth, end quote, in Hebrew on the missiles. This is according to the Fars news agency in Iran. The phrase originates from a remark that was made by the Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, the founder of Iran's Islamic Revolution. The firings took place on the second and final day of a large-scale military drill, which marked the first time Tehran has fired ballistic missiles since signing a deal with world powers on its nuclear program back in July. And then, also today, again, North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles, and that was earlier today in the North Hwanghae province, south of Pyongyang. And this is according to the South Korean military. Now, the missiles were fired towards the sea, east off the Korean peninsula, and then the South closely tracked the projectiles and is monitoring the situation right now. Out of control? I think so. Things are trippy. And for Iran right now to just go, whatever, the agreement, don't care. They were quoted today. The senior advisor to the president of Iran literally said today, and I'm quoting here, sanctions, we don't care about sanctions. I don't care. Don't care. Unbelievable. Don't care. That was the answer. A man Now, I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but this is for real. It sounds like it's off of something like The Onion or something. A man allegedly shot a pastor in Idaho, and 2 days later was arrested at the White House after tossing objects over the White House fence. His name, Kyle Andrew Odom, 30 years old, was taken into custody at the White House yesterday. He was the suspect in the Sunday shooting of Pastor Tim Remington outside a church in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Now, this is where it gets nuts. The suspect, Kyle, left behind writings that included the names of the pastor that he shot, several lawmakers, senators, House of Representatives, along with some Israeli government officials, and police are examining a 21-page letter in which he identifies himself as Odom and claims that his life was ruined by amphibian humanoids from Mars. The letter names Pastor Tim Remington and many others in these wild claims of alien conspiracy. He says the world is ruled by, and I'm quoting here from the letter, an ancient civilization from Mars, end quote, describing the Pastor Remington as one of them. He says that he has no time to share his story, but will do so in the future. Odom's arrest came after he threw flash drives and other unknown objects over the White House fence. This story doesn't end here. That's what I've got right now. Insane. The Russian space agency Roscosmos has approved the first private project aimed at ferrying wealthy tourists into space. That's right. The company Cosmocours has been licensed to develop a reusable system for space tourism, and the flights are going to start nearly immediately. And this is according to company CEO Pavel Pushkin. The system includes a suborbital launch vehicle and spacecraft that could transport tourists at an altitude of 200 kilometers above the Earth. The first 15-minute space trip is planned for 2020. 3.5 years from now, with a ticket price of $200,000 to $250,000 each. The company plans to provide flights for groups of 6 space tourists with an opportunity to spend 5 to 6 minutes in space at zero gravity. The capsule will be steered by the pilot. And they go on to say, all of you flat earthers will give you a discount and special cameras with special lenses that won't distort the circumference of the Earth. Dig that. $200,000 flat earther special. The FBI has changed its privacy rules regarding how freely agents can gain access and search data collected by the National Security Agency that involves the communications of Americans. But it just won't say what the changes are. Additionally, there's no word on when the changes were actually made, since that information apparently is classified as well. The revisions concern Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which permitted the FBI to access data obtained by the NSA via the PRISM program. That data included emails, texts, and phone calls made by foreigners. However, if any of the communications involved Americans, then that data is accessed and retrieved as well. Yeah. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence said that eventually the adjustments might be revealed to the public. Well, I just revealed it here. Are you angry? The big announcement, it happened yesterday. Dos Equis is retiring, the most interesting man in the world. Moment of silence, please. That's right. Dos Equis announced everything yesterday. Dos Equis, which is owned by Heineken, isn't halting the campaign as much as ending the tenure of Jonathan Goldsmith, the man who has played the character since 2007. Yes, Dos Equis will reveal a new most interesting man in the world sometime in 2016. And I got to tell you, I want that gig. I do. I want that gig. We need to start a campaign. I got to get that gig. Yesterday. Oh man, I'm just playing. No, you know what? Anybody would want that gig, right? I mean, how cool of a gig is that? Oh, there's rumors going around right now, and I tried to confirm it right before the show, but I couldn't quite nail it down. So I'll leave it to you, my faithful, smart audience. There's rumors that his last commercial is going to be for Mars. Yeah, the last commercial, the most interesting man in the world, is going to be on Mars. That's the story that is out there. That's the rumor on the streets here in Hollywood. See if you can get to the bottom of it. I heard it. I couldn't confirm it. So there you go. I'm not reporting it. I'm just suggesting that his last run of commercials will be from Mars, and I look forward to it. Well, yesterday it was Scotch whiskey. That's right. Today it's olive oil. Yes, prices spiked 20% in 2015 after drought and disease devastated a big part of Europe's olive crop, and industry experts are now forecasting a similar increase again this year. Global production of olive oil dropped by a third last year. And you know me, you know Rita, we use a lot of olive oil. Data from the International Olive Council now shows Spain, which produces about 40% of the world's olive oil, experienced an unusually hot and dry summer in 2014 that led to the worst harvest in nearly 20 years. To meet export orders, Spanish producers ran down their reserves. But the 2015-2016 harvest is also turning out to be weak, again due to unusually hot weather. 3 weeks of very high temperatures in July 2015 caused huge amounts of olives to mature too quickly. So, go easy on the olive oil. And if you got it stocked up, man, just don't waste it. It could be really bad news. The U.S. military has conducted airstrikes against targets that it believes are crucial to ISIS chemical weapons program based on information provided by a senior ISIS operative that was involved in chemical weapons. Now, he was captured in Iraq 3 weeks ago, the first since a team of special operation forces have begun operating in Iraq. And this is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Very special thanks to Don Schmitt, Tom Carey. Their new book is Children of Roswell. Go check it out. It is a good read. Fade to Black's executive producers Rita Kamarian. Shows produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA, The Planet. Tomorrow night, Jeff Harmon, right here. Nancy Reagan and Astrology. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2016 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. Cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, or copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Everybody be safe. Go Backley Tappy.